morning, KW Milwaukee on a beautiful Tuesday. Um, it's a beautiful month. It's a beautiful week. And we've been the direct beneficiaries of some incredible weather. So hopefully you're getting outside, getting some fresh vitamin D and taking advantage of the moment. All right, so today is kind of continuing on this theme of like the energy dial and the energy dial around how we're building our businesses and preparing our businesses in the third and fourth quarter to take advantage of it in the first and second quarter. Okay. And I'm going to plant some seeds with you today as you start thinking ahead into 2025 about how you're building your businesses, around how you plan to attack the market, because you need to understand how the market is operating and how buyers and sellers and what the profile of buyers and sellers are within our Milwaukee market in order for you to develop and build your marketing plans, your brand plans, what your ethos is, what your energy is around who it is that you're trying to attract and those that you're trying to serve. And so my goal today is to plant seeds for you to get you to think around what you plan to do differently in 2025 based on how people are interacting with your services as it stands today. Make sense? So, and also is a little plug, all of the slides are always available to the group afterwards at kwrealtymke.com, where you can download them in order for you to go into a deeper dive as it relates to what the market is telling us and how it impacts business. So before I kick it off, mission, vision, values, beliefs, and perspectives, one thing I wanted to highlight within our mission statement is all around to build careers worth having, businesses worth owning, lives worth living, experiences worth giving, and legacies worth leaving. And one of the most incredible things about our company that it does on a very regular and consistent basis is the impact that KW Cares has amongst our associates that are going through life-changing events. And in the last month, many in the Southeast area part of the country have experienced life-changing events, and KW's Cares was out in full force to support those who were impacted by both of the hurricanes that hit down in the Southeast. KW Cares is an organization, donate over $1 million to impacted associates. They provided 171 emergency grants, and they provided over 1,000 generators to those in the Southeast area of the country that were most impacted by this. I will also tell you from a team standpoint, KW Cares, one of the things that they do that's I think one of the most impactful from a leadership standpoint, and I get regular updates on this, is when major natural disasters happen. They make sure the KW Cares team in general make sure that all of the KW associates are like basically found and accounted for, and taking a stock as to where people are. And I think it's one of the most incredibly impactful things that we as an organization globally do, is this impact of KW Cares. And I know there are several of you who donate to KW Cares on a transactional basis, even if it's $2 a transaction, $5 a transaction. We have somebody who does $100+ a transaction, and it's really simply to think of it like the Sunshine Fund of what we have on a local level. This impacts people on a macro level, and the more and more these events take place, the more and more it impacts more of our associates. And I just think it's the power into sharing the story of what KW Cares does is really impactful, and how they live by our mission, vision, values, beliefs, and perspectives. Having shared that, excited to share a handful of people to celebrate who capped in the month of September. So let's jump into it first. This person just celebrated their 7th anniversary with KW. They actually came the same week I came. We kind of came hand in hand. She lives on the east side, is a free spirit. Julie Bolgering, congrats on capping in the month of September. My slide deck's a little funky today, but all good. So Julie Bolgren, congrats on capping in the month of September. Next up, this person, cool little side note about this person. Their son is an assistant coach for the Houston Texans, and unfortunately had to leave Lambeau Field with a loss on Sunday. But a really great person, lives in Grafton, has incredibly positive energy all the time. Patty Eubanks, congrats on capping in the month of September. All right, next up. This person, I always call him like the Bruce Springsteen of KW. Super cool, cooler than the other side of the pillow, if you know that reference. Nick Fetting, congrats on capping in the month of September. All right, next up. I don't know what is going on today. Woo. Nick Fetting. All right, here we go. Next up, relatively new to the business. Great example of a multi-generational, someone who's coming in, learning the business from the ground up, getting involved on the day-to-day. Bridget Gallagher, congrats on capping in the month of September. All right, here we go. I don't know what is going on with these slides today, but I'm just going to keep reading them off. All right, next up, out in Lake Country, knows and understands the luxury market at the highest level, does things the right way, understands how to curate a brand to attract his business. Congrats to Bruce Gallagher on capping in the month of September. Next up, Jeff Johns out in Lake Country as well, has effectively doubled his business in the last 18 months. Absolutely killing it, has taken on an assistant, building efficiencies within what he's doing and helping him build scale. Congrats to Jeff on capping in the month of September. Next up, an agent over in the North Shore who transitioned to us about a year or two ago and really building her business a nice way, has a really nice niche from River West to the North Shore, understands how they span and bridge the gap between the two communities. Congrats to Kathleen Clausen on capping in the month of September. Next up, this person's really done a nice job effectively building their business and building scale to it. They've gone about their business the right way and continues to build it step by step, brick by brick. Debbie Lindquist, congrats on capping in the month of September. Next up, a person who's always giving back, and what I affectionately say is helping bend the arc of others within the industry. Congrats to Shawnee for capping in the month of September. Next up, over in Tosa, an incredible person who was thrown a curveball in their business in 2023-24 by having twins. And they went from one child to three children with a matter of moments notice and continues to build his business in an incredible way. Congrats to Ethan Masson on capping in the month of September. Another multi-generational business owner, someone who's building their business alongside both a brother and a parent. I can relate. There's some unique challenges and dynamics is that when you're working with family. Congrats to Katie Miller on capping in the month of September. Next up, here's a really cool story about making an impact in other people's lives. And it was a totally random. One day at 2 a.m, I got stuck at Midway Airport in Chicago. And I threw it out on Facebook at midnight that I needed a ride home, and I didn't know how to get home because I couldn't take an Uber. Karen Spinty drove all the way down to Midway Airport, and we had the most incredible conversation on the way home. Karen Spinty, that's who you are, and it's in your heart. Congrats, Spinty, for capping in the month of September, and thank you for being an absolutely incredible person in life. Lastly, another person that's always willing to help people build their businesses, has an incredible investment business with her and her husband, Joby. Little sidebar fact, she played college basketball. Her husband played professional basketball over in Europe. Congrats to Abby Wall for capping in the month of September. So I don't know what's going on with the slides today and the animation that's behind them, but we will make sure that we update it appropriately so that all Julie, Patty, Nick, Bridget, Bruce, Jeff, Kathleen, Debbie, Shawnee, Ethan, Katie, Spinty, and Abby are appropriately recognized in a way that the technology works. So my apologies. All right. With that, a few office operations updates for the group. One is, we talked about this the last 2 weeks, but just want to remind the group that the Energage survey for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel top workplaces is now out and live. It is a completely anonymous survey. Unfortunately, I would love to see the feedback, but we don't get it. But it does help us benchmark ourselves versus our peer group. For the last 2 years, we were incredibly fortunate to be named as the top workplace across all industries in southeastern Wisconsin. So I'd appreciate your willingness to participate in the survey and know that the survey that comes from Energage around workplace is something that we are choosing to actively participate in, and would appreciate your help. All right, with that, I'm flipping it over to Lindsay Vranek for tech and marketing. Linz, what do these guys need to know around building your database this fall?
Okay. Good morning, everybody. All right, so I am staying with the same theme as last week, which are all around ways you can build your database. Now, I know a lot of you are in Bold or in that Bold room the next few weeks, and the main theme of Bold is lead generation and making those 100 contacts every single week. And so I wanted to really stick with ways that you can do that lead generate. Last week, I talked about the 12 direct and doing direct mail campaigns within Command, farming a geographical area. This week, we're talking about paid ad campaigns within Command and how you can utilize your social media accounts in order to do that. And so there's a lot of really cool tools within the paid ad campaigns. You can launch these campaigns on Google, Facebook, and Instagram. Now, when it comes to Google, it's the Google Display Network. And so what essentially that is it helps you reach people as they browse millions of different websites and apps and Google-owned sites, such as YouTube and Gmail. It's an effortless way to broaden your customer base, and you can reach people at all stages in the buying cycle. And now the different types of paid ad campaigns, you can generate leads with a variety of different types. So there's single image, there's multi-image, multi-listing ads. You can also use integrated AI technology to instantly generate high-performing headlines and body text for your ad campaigns. So if you kind of struggle with exactly what to put in that headline title, that body text, it's going to help you right within that campaign in order to generate that. It also offers a flexible payment workflow and refund options. So you can pause those ads, restart them. It'll refund you what you put into that. And there's also two objectives. So if you want to really focus on generating traffic to your social media accounts or your website, or really any link that you put in there, you can choose one of those traffic ad campaigns. Otherwise, if you want to focus on generating strictly leads that funnel back into your Command database, then you can choose from one of those campaign types. So a lot of different options in here, and it's very, very easy to set those up. So if anyone's interested in learning more about that, how to lead generate with those paid ad campaigns, generate some more contacts in your database, join me on Thursday for tech and marketing training at 11. It's always on Zoom. So this Thursday at 11 o'clock, we'll be talking all about this and how to set these up. So next slide. Again, just tech and marketing training. And then finally, I'm really excited. We've got, drum roll please, another free headshot day coming up on November 5th. So November 5th is also election day. So it's a perfect opportunity to get out and vote, and then stop by Stonehouse Collective in Shorewood and get a free headshot. So it's a great opportunity to get a professional photo taken. If you have never gotten a professional headshot taken, great opportunity for that. So Tuesday, November 5th from 1 to 4. It's at Stonehouse Collective. That's where we did our sip and shop back in July. It's a great store. So come by, do some shopping, and then get a free headshot. So that QR code is going to take you to the sign up. So that is live to sign up for a time slot. So again, Tuesday, November 5th, get out and vote. Make sure we all do that, and then get a free headshot. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks, Linz. Guys, the power of paid ads. How do you create strategic SEO? How do you create strategic interruption? How do you get in front of those and base your marketing and advertising to get in front of the demographics that you think would ping based on your brand, based on your listing, whatever it is that you're trying to do or attract? It's a great way to help elevate your business. All right, with that, flipping it over to the lieutenant. Steph, what do these guys need to be paying attention to? Steph. All right. Well, October training calendar.
She just mentioned she's unable to unmute herself. It's not letting her.
Oh.
Can the host unmute Steph?
Tell Steph to come see me, and we're somewhere close to each other.
I think.
All right.
I think.
Oh, there you go.
There she is.
All right. Okay. Okay, just a little bit of a compliance variety pack this morning. We've kind of got a lot of little random things to go over this morning. But first up, Next week, Monday, we're doing our last October contract training on inspections and testing and the real estate condition report. So just a reminder to join Joan and I live via Zoom every Monday at 12 p.m. And you can access that Zoom link via kwrealtymke.com. And again, not just for new agents, for seasoned agents as well. It's been a minute since some of us have had to negotiate inspections, so it's a good refresher. So please join us. All right, license renewal action items. So again, we're into the biennium. We need to continue to do our continuing ed classes this year. Make sure that we're completing that by December 14th. So at this point, all you're doing is taking the continuing ed courses. We do not need the copies of the certificates. And then also to pay your GMAR dues, and I will show you in a minute where you can access that link. The online renewal with the DSPS is still not open. I checked last night. Hopefully by the end of the month, that'll be free. And I will, of course, link you to that once we get that, once that's open. All right. For the
Don't be the agent who emails us in January asking why their MLS is shut off.
right.
Just take a mental note. All right.
Please. Okay, then where to find your continuing education courses? You're going to do that from the WRA. You're going to go to the education tab. So next slide, Charlie. You're going to go to the education tab. You're going to scroll down to continuing ed, and then you're going to choose the real estate CE option, and it's going to give you a variety of ways to complete those courses. Once you complete a course, you're going to be issued a certificate. Again, I do not need to see that. We just want you to keep that, set that aside, because you will need to log in that information once you renew your license with the DSPS, and that I will be tracking. The GMAR dues, again, really weird that this came out on a Friday night at 5 o'clock, but there's a September 13th email from Michelle Cohn at the GMAR with a personal link for you to pay your GMAR dues. I'm sure this is now way buried. Please just do an email search for 2025 GMAR dues renewal invoice, and you will be taken right to your email. Okay, and then I'll be tracking that through the GMAR. They'll be able to notify me who has paid and who has not paid. Okay, next up, I wanted to bring this to the greater good versus keeping this just to Lindsay and I's tech training on compliance and zip forms. So accessing the zip forms clause library. So our attorney, Peter Zaroff, has completed and written up a bunch of clauses for us at the ready to use if we need them. And I just want to remind people where this zip forms clause library lives and how you can use it. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to be operating within the additional provisions on an offer. And that's where you're going to be accessing that, that clause that you might need to insert. So from that additional provisions, next slide, Charlie. As if you are about to type into the space, an add clause option automatically pops up for you. So you're going to click that. And then it's going to bring you to this pop up, and we have our global clauses here right at the top. There's 22 here for us to use, depending again on the scenario. So you're going to hit that global option. And then it's going to bring you to right to the menu of clauses that we have available. So right here, we've got radon test standards, language around readiness addendum for rental transactions, removal of a bump clause. I'm going to choose to highlight the right to cure language that I would love all of us to be using. So go ahead and click which clause you want, and then it's going to bring you to the language, and you can just hit insert, and it will bring it right and put it right into your page for you. So again, this is the right to cure language. This is an expansion on right to cure with the inspection contingency. This is a great tool for buyer's agents, FYI. So again, I just want you guys to see, have a line of sight so where you can access those clauses. Okay, Next up, so the GMAR Addendum A, I was just reminded of this. It was actually a year ago that we last talked about this. Just a reminder, as buyer's agents, we do need to be using the GMAR Addendum A. We get the question a lot, you know, if we're not using a seller contribution, if our buyer is not asking for a home warranty, you know, if there is no testing contingency, et cetera, do we need to use the GMAR Addendum A? And the answer is yes. Next slide, there are a lot of buyer protections buried within pages 2 and 3 that help our buyers and help us, to be honest, as well. Some examples of this, at the bottom here, information on promotional materials. So right here in bold, it says if any particular measurement or data element is important or material to a buyer, the buyer assumes all responsibility and liability to research, verify, and confirm said data element and measurement. That's a protection for us just as much as it is a protection for the buyer. So again, we just want to make sure that you're still using this Addendum A. And then lastly, on the Addendum A, the additional contingency template is here for use as well. So that's lines 206 to 213. So if anybody needs to add an additional contingency to their offer, use this as a template. It's all spelled out there for you. And just, again, it's no questions asked, you know. That's it on the Addendum A. Okay, then last up, the protected property letter. This rarely comes up, but it came up for us just a couple days ago, so I wanted to highlight this. So in the same way that we as listing agents might need to send a protected buyer letter to our former seller clients, we as buyer agents might need to send a protected property letter to our former buyer clients, meaning that any property that we may have shown our buyers during the term of our buyer agency contract becomes a protection for us, meaning if that buyer were to make an offer and get a successful closing on that property after their buyer agency agreement expired with us, then we are owed that commission. So we might need to identify those properties and send them to the buyer once our buyer agency expires. More often than not, the case with this would be is if there's just a singular home that a buyer agency contract was written for, meaning a buyer agency agreement only applied to one personal property. It's a lot of work to go back and identify every single property that you've shown somebody. That's why we don't see them much. But again, just a reminder that you might need to employ this to a buyer client. That's all I got.
Beautiful. Lieutenant, a lot of information coming down the pike, but a lot of ways to protect you and your fiduciary responsibilities. So, Steph, appreciate you jumping on and provide some insight to the group. All right, I'm going to jump into training and education, and then I'm going to plant seeds. Okay. And the way I want you to view the training and education is all around what am I doing to prep for 25? Okay. You can see here the remaining October training calendar. One thing I do want to call out, shout out to the group of 120-ish that showed up to Business Planning Clinic last week. Listen, I want you to hear me on one thing. Business Planning Clinic is monotonous, straight up. And there are a lot of elements within the material that Shannon covered that were vitally important as it relates to how you operate the financials of your business. Many of you are operating your financials on a wing and a prayer and hoping that you're profitable. Hope is not a good strategy. And if you didn't attend Business Planning Clinic, I would reach out to someone in leadership in order to get the material, because there is great frameworks from which you should be operating your business as it relates to how you structure your financials to ensure that you're running a profitable business. The worst thing you can do is spend money as fast as you make it. And 90% of the industry spends money as fast as they make it. And so the purpose behind Business Planning Clinic and the purpose behind the monotony of Business Planning Clinic is to ensure that you're structuring a profitable business, because you are a for-profit entity. You are. And so it's making sure that you're utilizing the models and systems around how you structure your financial operations of your business appropriately to ensure that you're getting out of what you're putting into it. Make sense? Cool. Outside of that, There is some pumpkin painting going on from a community and culture building standpoint today in the North Shore office from 3:30 to 5, and tomorrow from 3:35 over in Tosa. And then in Thursday out in Lake Country is one of the biggest parties of the year, which is the Heartland Business Trick or Treat, which if you haven't been and you're looking for something to do on a Thursday night, you should go check it out. It's insane. So, today in North Shore, little family gathering, bring your kids, bring your neighbors, whoever you want in the North Shore from 3:30 to 5, tomorrow in Tosa, and then in Lake Country for the Heartland Business Trick or Treat. All right, Opportunity Knocks. What we're going to be running on November 15th is connecting top teams to talent and providing a speed dating session. So if you're an agent searching for a team, if you're trying to consider what a team might be, or you're an agent considering starting a team and what does a really effective team look like and how do they sell a value proposition, make sure to check this out November 15th from 10 to noon. Great way to connect talent. That's a big thing of what we try to do to help people build scale is how do we help you connect talent? And that is on the 15th from 10 to noon. All right. Looking ahead to the November training calendar, the training calendar gets a little wonky because of scheduling. So first things first, on Tuesday, November 5th, it's election day. That day cannot, for me personally, cannot come soon enough from a standpoint of just getting all of the negativity out of my life. And however you believe, that's fine. What I'm encouraging you to do is go vote for whoever you believe in. And so we're not going to be having a team meeting on Tuesday, November 5th. I learned this 4 years ago when we ran a team meeting on election day, and it was a complete distraction. So we just said, great, noted for 4 years from now, November 5th, we won't have a team meeting. Second of all, is we continue Bold on Wednesdays down at the War Memorial. And for those that have taken Bold before in the past, I want to make sure that you note the last day of Bold is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So instead of then bridging the gap post Thanksgiving, the last day of Bold this year is pre-Thanksgiving. Lastly, we'll be hosting a special Maureen and Friends on Wednesday, the 27th at 10 a.m. And then we will be closing the offices at noon in order to give our leadership extra time in order to get to where they need to go for the Thanksgiving holiday to celebrate with those that they love. Cool. And then offices will be closed on Friday. From there, the other thing I would point out is we are doing vision boards coming up in December. So stay tuned for that, just as a little thing there. Again, everything we've done from September, October, November, and December is to help you build towards a really effective strategy for 2025. Cool. Lastly, the holiday party is on Thursday, December 5th at the P. Pfister Hotel downtown. Come ready and we'll have a blast. I saw the plans in the outline for it today. We'll have a ton of fun. I guarantee it. I've never heard anybody not say they haven't had a ton of fun. So that's how I can give a guarantee. All right, you guys ready? Here's where I would be taking notes and thinking about how I'm positioning myself within the marketplace in order to attract the business I desire from both the buyer side and the seller side. What does my brand say about who I am and who I'm trying to attract? Okay. And in order to know who you're trying to attract, you have to understand who is desiring to transact. And so what my goal is today is to help you understand is who is transacting so that you can create a plan in place for 2025 to attract the business that is transacting, and then how you position yourself within the marketplace in order to compete effectively. Because here's a really good reminder. The average person in Southeastern Wisconsin knows 12 real estate agents. And I'm going to go through some of this data here shortly. But for round math, 80% of the time, a client only interviews one person. So it is a game of noise. It is a game of noise and how you position your brand. And how you position your brand and how you interact with your brand from an intensity and frequency standpoint is how you'll be able to attract the business you desire. So last week, I shared with you some data around the state of the industry going back to 2000. And one of the things that I pointed out is around the trend line of the average price in Southeastern Wisconsin. And the reason I'm bringing this back up is I want to create something in your minds that makes you think. See, the challenge is when we say the phrase that the market gives you volume, the agents control their units, is that agents for the last 3 to 4 years have been drunk on volume. And that they've been able to make the incomes they desire because volume has continuously gone up as the average price points within the marketplace have gone up. The problem is if your units have gone down, despite the fact that volume has gone up and you haven't felt the impact on your income, you're actually losing ground to your competitors because of the transaction of the unit. Okay. And so the reason why I bring this up, and this is really good data to share with your homeowners as it relates to values and increasing over time, and time in the market beats timing the market. The reason why I bring this up is I don't want you to get drunk on volume, because the volume has risen and we got to focus on the units. So when we go to the units, and again, as I shared this last week, going back to 2000, and I said, what goes up must come down and what goes down must come up, is I very much firmly believe that we were in a free for all from 22 into 23 and now into 24. We have now starting to see the tide rise as it relates to transactional units. And I want you guys to focus on transactional units as you're thinking about your business plan, because the volume will come as the market continues to rise as it relates to appreciation. So focus on your units, because right now, if you're still sitting here and you survived the transition from 21 to 24, you were able to survive and advance. Now, I also made a comment that was somewhat bold, and I said I'm very bullish on the next 5 years of our industry. And I'm going to share with you some data around demographics that I've shared with the group before, but here's why I'm very bullish on where we are as an industry over the next 5 years. And again, my mindset is long-term view and long-term planning so that you can have a great career, not just a great 1 year. And here's why. And I'm going to share you with you 3 slides as it relates to demographics. When you look at demographics by age cohort, okay, the largest demographic right now in the US labor force is the age 21 to 33. Now, in the last couple of years, blended, the average first-time home buyer average was 33. So if you're thinking about what does it look like and why should I be bullish on the demand side of the metric moving forward and how am I building for a great career, you have to remember that 21 to 33 is the largest labor force within, or with the largest demographic within the US labor force. It means there's still an incredible amount of demand that is still pent up in building as people come of age to the point where they decide to buy. Hence why I'm bullish on the demand side of the metric. Okay. There is strong demand for the foreseeable future. Demographics are in our favor as it relates to buyer demand. Now, the other thing that you need to be considering is 84% of household growth is 2 persons or less. Think smaller homes. And smaller households are growing faster, is the fastest growing segment within the single family home market. Okay. When you look down here, the average 1-person household growth per year, the average 2-person household growth per year. And you should be thinking about how you're segmenting your database based on the demographics of the household. And then thinking about where they sit within the likelihood of them taking action so that you can segment your database effectively in order to communicate to them in the most effective manner. Last thing as it relates to demographics is first-time marriage is being delayed. Okay. Which first time, yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that one comment. But first-time marriage is being delayed. People are getting married later on in life. And so there's been a big swing in the rate in which single women are purchasing real estate property. There's a way that you can, again, segment your database in order to target or effectively communicate to that cohort. Again, I'm trying to plant seeds with you to think about who you're communicating to and who you're trying to attract. Now, let's go through the profile of buyers and sellers in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for you to effectively think about what it is that you need to do, or there's something that you might need to change as it relates to your approach in order to create conversion. The best listing agents, and I'll use listing agents as an example, are the ones that don't leave the appointment without getting it signed. The likelihood of you leaving an appointment without a listing contract signed and them coming back to you is very, very low. You have to remember that. So let's go through the buyer profile, specifically around southeastern Wisconsin. 45% of buyers are first-time home buyers. Remember how I talked about the largest demographic in the US labor force is 21 to 33. The national average as of in the last couple of years has been a third. So Milwaukee is a region, or the southeastern Wisconsin area is a region, has done a nice job of attracting young talent. You can do a little bit more research into the MMAC's work in this, the E7 group that's been all around driving and developing economics. And a lot of it has to do with how we're attracting young professional talent, which then ultimately becomes first-time home buyers. The Milwaukee average buyer profile is 36 years old. The national average is 45 years old. Their relationship status, 57% are married, 25% are single female, 16% are single male. How you segment your database is important, and 11% are unmarried couples. The desire to own a home was the primary reason at 31% versus 28% nationally. So the good news here is within our local region, people view the value of the real estate asset on their balance sheet very favorably versus what they do nationally. Okay, 6% were veterans and only 1% were active duty. That's not overly surprising when you consider that we don't really have any active military bases close by. Now, characteristics of the homes they purchased. This is again on the buyer side. New construction only represented 2% of the Milwaukee market, 2%. And so I hear a lot of agents who talk about, oh, I'm going to get into this or I'm in that. You just got to remember where the oxygen lives. The oxygen lives within 98% of the market. 98% of the market is existing resale homes. Okay. The national average is 15%. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that we have this big thing called the lake to our east, and the density to our east is dense. There's no more land to be developed. And so where new home construction, where does it typically sit? It sits towards our west. Okay. Median distance between home purchased and where they moved within southeastern Wisconsin is 10 miles. 10 miles. The reason this is important is you have to think about where you're building your market share and where you're farming within specific geographic zip codes. Most people aren't as transient as you think they are. Now, I'll use a different example. And this goes back to brand equity. In Washington, D.C., New York City, or Chicago, the reason why brand equity, I believe, isn't nearly as important from an agent perspective is because the cities are so transient. Someone moves into the city for 3 years, they leave the city after 3 years. They move into the city for 5 years, they leave the city after 5 years. And so it's a very transient transaction. In southeastern Wisconsin, where the average person is only moving within 10 miles from their previous place of residence, it shows you the importance that the brand equity you have and how you develop your brand equity for people to call you to create an attractive business. Okay. The national average is 15 miles. Buyers expect to live in their homes for 5 years. The national average is 12 years. And we know that typical cycles end up being 7 to 10 years. So again, as you think about, and you're going and doing a deep dive into your database management in 2024, moving ahead into 2025 is, are you tracking their home anniversaries? Are you tracking when they last moved? Are you segmenting your database to understand as people get closer to a typical decision point, are you in that relationship when it is occurring? You need to understand that as a way to identify when your database theoretically could be hotter than other places based on the tenure that they've been in. The home buying and real estate professionals, again, focusing on the buying standpoint, 91% of all buyers were represented through an agent in southeastern Wisconsin versus 89% nationally. Again, people in southeastern Wisconsin are telling you they value your fiduciary responsibility and the services you provide. 52% of buyers were found their agent via a referral. This goes back to my comment around the brand equity and who it is that you're speaking to and what you're trying to attract in order to transact. Right? 79% of buyers only interviewed one agent during their home search. 79% of all buyers only interviewed one agent during their home search. So if you leave the buyer consult and you don't have buyer agency signed, what does that tell you? You have a high likelihood that you aren't going to convert the client. So when I said earlier around, you need to think about your practices as it relates to your buyer consults or your seller consults. If your conversion ratio after the appointment has dropped significantly, you have to think about the sense of urgency that you're communicating your value with your clients in the moment. Some people, and I will say some agents I've found to be too passive or too patient with their clients, and then their clients find an agent who is more aggressive and they wonder why they lost the client. I know this is the uncomfortable part of you have to think about how it is that you're asking for the business. Okay, 94% would recommend their agent again. Again, telling you that people value your services. Home buying and financing, 93% of all buyers finance their purchase. Average down payments, you can see repeat was 21, first-time home buyers was 10%. 80% of buyers viewed their purchase as a good financial investment. Again, this is all local information through survey data that NAR and GMAR provides us. Reasons for a down payment would be difficult. 46% was student loan, 26% was high rent or current mortgage, 20% was high auto loans. We've talked about this in the past, and some of the morning dialogues that happened in August and September is, how do you become someone's trusted financial fiduciary as it relates to how they operate their household from an expense standpoint, how you help them navigate it in order for them to make good financial decisions. And do you have a team around them that you can pull somebody in to help them look at it objectively within that space as well? All right, seller profiles for listing agents, okay? The median age for sellers in southeastern Wisconsin was 43 years old. The national median was 56. Again, very bullish in southeastern Wisconsin as it relates to the demographics of those who's transacting in the industry. Most commonly cited reasons for selling home was too small, move closer to friends and family, job relocation, change in family situation. Sellers typically lived in their home for 8 years. Again, as we talk about segmenting or the demographics of your database, understanding the tenure that they've been in their home, the average person in southeastern Wisconsin lived in their home for 8 years. Where does your database sit within the tenure, and how do you identify how close they are? Okay, 94% of transactions in southeastern Wisconsin utilized an agent to sell. Homes lasted within a week. That's a very subjective measure based on that. So I wouldn't say that a week is the typical turnaround time from a velocity standpoint. 70% of sellers were satisfied with the experience. So I think that there's room there in terms of how we elevate our service standards and how we elevate our communication with our clients, because 94% of transactions utilized an agent, but only 70% of them were satisfied with the experience. So I think as an industry in general, we have room for improvement as it relates to the professional experience we provide. 85% found their agent from a referral from a friend, neighbor, relative, or they had worked with previously. And you're going to laugh, but the whole conversation or question that, the old adage of, who do you know that wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? There's a much better way of asking that question. And there's real truth as to why you ask the question, knowing that 85% of people who sold their home came through a referral of someone who previously utilized your services. The national average is 68%. So going back to my comment earlier around major metropolitan cities that are very transient, the brand equity that you're building and developing as it relates to how you communicate your value is vitally important in southeastern Wisconsin. I had a conversation with someone last week who was in Chicago, and we were talking about the variances and differences in the market. And we basically came to the conclusion that Chicago is a very transactional market. Milwaukee is a very relational market. You have to keep that in mind. And I will go back to last week's team meeting when I said, you have to be focusing on your reputation and how you handle your co-broke relationships, because it can make or break the reason as to why you get a deal together. Okay. 92% of the time, sellers only contacted one agent. Remember, the average person in southeastern Wisconsin knows 12 real estate agents. 92% of the time, they went with the person they contacted first. If you don't get the signed listing contract in the appointment, the likelihood of you getting it after the appointment is very low. Okay, the national average is 82%. Again, people trust the referral that is provided to them. Referrals, here's something very important and something that I have really harped on in years past. Are you tracking the sources of your business and where they come from? And the reason why I ask that is, do you have opportunity to organically increase your business based on how you're asking or nudging for a referral? Here's why. The typical seller has referred their agent twice since selling their home. 52% of the sellers recommended their agents 3 or more times since selling their home. And 85% of all sellers found their agent through a referral. So my question to you is, you look back onto 2024 and you look ahead into 2025 are your listings having babies? You need to ask yourself the question. And if you aren't tracking it as to what sources for each listing, did you get 2 pieces of incremental business? 2 pieces of incremental business from each listing. And if you didn't, You need to be thinking about how you marketed the listing, or you need to think about how the client experience that you provided as to why you didn't receive a referral from the client you just served. Okay. And so the reason why I share this data with you is so that you can make really good and informed decisions around the direction you want to take your business into 2025, the direction of how you set your brand up to differentiate yourself for success in 2025. And demographics are in our favor as to why I'm very bullish on the next 5 years within our region as it relates to residential real estate. And start thinking about it now so you can set yourself up for success for 2025. Sound good? Love it. All the slides are available to you on kwrealtymke.com. Guys, it's a beautiful day in Milwaukee. Have a great day. Thanks for showing up.